A very good afternoon, a very good evening to all of you. I'm Ankita from NASSCOM. Yesterday, we had a session on COVID-19, building resilience, building strength, how to grow and find opportunities during this difficult and challenging times. Today, we will focus on a very significant sector, which is the health tech pharma sector. The topic of discussion will be the Zen of pharma selling and key learning for IT sales by Mr. Raja Reddy, Head Marketing in Surdia Pharmaceuticals India Private Limited. Before I hand over to him, two more things from my side. Please ask questions anytime during the session. Mr. Reddy will answer most of them, keeping the time limit in mind during his session. Also, please do not forget to leave your feedback to help me better my future webinars. Welcome, Mr. Reddy, and over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today. And this would be my first experience of a webcast outside my work area. I mean, for sharing an experience. And so it's challenging circumstances out there. And one of my favorite quotes has always been from Alan Kay. The best way to predict future is to go about creating it. Last 2.5 decades of selling experience, one thing I have learned, nothing happens in a company till a sale is done. So the best way of predicting future is ensuring that our sales are good. So in the next 45 minutes, I would like to share my experience from the School of Hard Knocks. Why would I say that? I've started my career as a medical rep, and then last 2.5 decades, I had various sales and marketing experiences. So I would like to share 45 minutes, my experience, various experiences I have had in selling and the insights I have understood. And as Ankita has said, anytime during the presentation, you can share, you can ask your questions, but I would answer them at the end of my presentation. 15 minutes we have for questions. Okay, I'm trying to change this slide. Okay, all my life I have been in pharma selling. We do encounter salesmen who are trying to sell us various solutions. I've taken the recent ones. For example, an automated contract tool for comments and electronic signatures, a cloud-based application for dashboards, a social media strategy. These were the three ones we have encountered. So one of the things about selling is there are various techniques that are available. The one that immediately come to my mind from experience are which selling style to adapt, whether you are in pharma or in IT. Is it a solution-oriented selling, a value-based selling, a consultative approach, or a purpose-driven approach? A solution-based selling, or we can also say what in its latest avatar, jobs to be done. Value-based selling, I was taught that B2B approach, it's very good. Consultative selling works very well when if you want to partner in problem identification, and the purpose-driven selling works all the time. Now, what I have learned, and this is what I call is a Zen of learning, the golden rule is that all rules are contextual in nature. There is no one particular selling style that would work or work for me. So this is one thing, it always comes to my mind. When any rule is formed, there is a context which is built around that rule. So the rule in isolation without the context is meaningless. So whether it is solution-oriented selling or jobs to be done, value-based selling, consultative approach, or purpose-driven all depend upon the context at that time. Before the webinar is finished, we in Survey use a technique, have been using since last 2 years, a technique called a solve, which I'll share with you. This was presumed to be have originated from Procter & Gamble, but this was refined and developed by our head of global excellence, Mr. Philip Mia. This is a storytelling technique which suits well for pharma companies. So I presume that it would suit well for selling technology products. I don't know how many of you read Daniel Pink's To Sell is Human. What words would randomly people recall when inquired about selling? Since I have said I come from pharma, I was a medical rep. One of the things what my colleagues would often say, one of the things we lack in pharma selling is respect for the medical rep. When in US, people were randomly asked about an opinion about salesmen, this is what they have immediately recalled. Difficult, annoying, dishonest, challenging, pushy, sleazy, boring. These are the common things. Whatever the kind of selling, the moment you say you are in sales, this is what people generally would say. On the contrary, where does this originate from? The reason is when I joined sales in my training, one of the things that was taught to us as a salesman was that you are always be closing. In fact, one of the trainer used to tell us a story about Ronald Reagan and his friend. His friend was an insurance salesman and a very good friend of, and he would play golf with Ronald Reagan. And he heard that Ronald Reagan purchased an insurance for himself. So one day he asked him, why you didn't buy from me? It was said that, I don't know how much of it is true. It was said that Ronald Reagan said, you never asked, you never inquired. That is the reason why I am never purchased. So, but in Serbia, luckily in our training, we were always told, don't go into this mode because this is aggressive. This is not patient-centric. So always be closing was one of the reasons why salespeople tend to be perceived either manipulative or somebody who's aggressive or pushy. So in 2.5 decades, I would say I had a great evolution. I am evolving still. I'm learning. Every day is a learning in sales. So initially, when I became a medical rep, my job involved meeting doctors. So I was trained in Mumbai. And after my training finished, I came back to Hyderabad, my headquarters, and met my boss, who was based in Hyderabad. And so I got my area. I had around 180 doctors to meet those days. I had to meet 10 doctors in a day and around 5 chemists. And I believed strongly the superior quality of my medicines is the reason why the doctors should prescribe my product or use for their patients. Over a period of time, I have realized that it is not necessarily true. And then I went back, rearmed myself with a lot of facts, figures, evidence. You can understand in pharma selling, it's all about clinical trials. It's all about data. Here we are selling to doctors who are more qualified than the salesmen. and it is for their patients' benefit. So I did the best possible thing. I read my product in and out. I read latest data, and then I would go and present it to the doctors. Although I would say that, most of the doctors and even pharmacists felt that I was a bit aggressive, and sometimes I was pushed out of the chamber, and I was not realizing why it was so. My boss was kind enough to coach me, and then I changed my working style. And after a certain period of time, I started being simple and polite, trying to listen to the customer, trying to listen to their viewpoint, respecting to their viewpoint. And one of the things I realized was it was stressful on me, because simple and polite was not my personality style. It was not natural to me. And there I came with the existential crisis of a salesman, although my sales were good, I must say. Then I had all these dilemmas in selling. Whether should I speak more, speak less? Should it be more effort, less effort? Should it be more knowledge, less knowledge? Should it be external? Should it be internal factors? And this is why I say it's Zen of selling.
Mr. Reddy, sorry to bother you in between. Actually, probably there is the cord of your microphone. It's, there's some voice issue which is coming. I guess this you're coming near to your laptop and then going far off. So probably this lead is creating some trouble with the voice.
Yeah, is it better now? Is it better now?
Yes, it is. Audience, is the voice better now? Please just write yes or no. There is a mic issue, I guess. People are writing. Yeah, it is better now.
Okay, so I'll make sure that I won't move forward. I won't go back. I'll say where I am. It's better.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So then I would say I got enlightened, not exactly, again, more knowledge. So I understood what was selling through a non-selling approach. I got inspired by Father of Nation, Mahatma Gandhi. It may come as a surprise to you to speak about selling and Mahatma Gandhi, but he taught us in reality what is the power of powerless. Few things, if you watch a Gandhi movie, a great inspirational movie, the first thing, what I realized for a leader, for a person, salesman or anyone, what matters is integrity. Not whether you have the skills, you have the right selling technique, whether you have the knowledge, whether you don't have the knowledge. Integrity is the bedrock for any kind of career you wish to, and more so in selling. And Mahatma has shown us connecting to the grassroots is very, very important. In particular, seeing near Champaran when he goes to visit these peasants who are working in Champaran, and after that he changes his, he stops wearing clothes and he starts dressing like peasants, and in one shot he explains that he wants to understand the suffering. He wants to be a true leader by being just like his followers. Also, it's a very important message which is often ignored in selling. We, the medium, the salespeople, are also a message. That reminds me of a very famous example, actually. That was an airline crisis, two crises. One was in US after the 9/11, when the airline bosses have gone to meet the American president for helping them to bail out by giving funds. Some of them have traveled in their own private aircrafts. Also in India, that happened around 10 years ago. except for one company which I won't name it. The rest, all the bosses were traveling in Mercs, limousines. People often forget that medium is also a message. So in selling, what is very important, these three words, Sanskrit words, are in most of the Indian languages. Whether it is taught, whether it is spoken word, whether it is in action, we should be in synchrony. And this is what Mahatma has taught us. Mahatma also taught us about the power of powerless. He realized, once again in Gandhi movie, there is a statement where he says if Indians would start hurting the British and the British would react and more number of Indians would die, and he wouldn't want that to happen. And he came back and gave a message to the world and how being non-violent can make you very powerful. And that is what Zen teaches us, being in the middle path. And we can use the power of integrity to give confidence to our customers so they believe in us, they believe in our products. So these are the 7 factors I've outlined. So one of the few things I have learned is the rule of 3, not more than 3 things to speak, and a maximum of 7. Ideally, I would never like to speak more than 3 things, but it's very challenging to explain. Maybe it would have been easier on a face-to-face workshop, taking 3 points and explaining what selling is. More difficult in a webinar. So these are the 7 factors, in my opinion, which are very important for any kind of selling. Honesty, which is the bedrock, integrity, tough-minded optimism, successful mediocrity, empathy, perspective, continuous learning, and some people are more important than others, and action. And this would apply to any kind of selling, including IT. So as I said, I can give you an example. I brought my LICs from a gentleman in Hyderabad. If you look at him, he is not somebody who's a typical salesman. He is not somebody who's so into power dressing, for example. He is not someone who speaks eloquently. He rarely speaks. But what I have noticed, when he speaks what is very responsibly, and whenever he commits something, he stands up to the commitment. Contrary to my experience, I've had people who are very good at talking, dress very well, promise you a dozen things in insurance I've seen, but the experience, on the contrary, when it comes to a commitment of meeting up a promise, they don't. And I have seen this in 25 years of selling and marketing experience. Doctors, for example, pharma selling is a long kind of selling. It's not that we meet a doctor once and he's out of my list. If I'm in that area, I continue to meet him for 3 to 4 years. I can tell you there are some of my customers whom I have met them over 25 years. Imagine now if they don't trust me, what kind of reputation, your reputation would arrive before you. So it's very important. Honesty and integrity for salespeople is much more important. But few things, we should never confuse being honest about being transparent or speaking irrelevant things. Also, being honest is not a schema for long-term benefits. Being honest means once you have committed something to an individual, you have to honor that, how much ever difficult it may be for you, whatever the policies that are there internally. And this has been my experience. And companies which empower salespeople to meet up to their customer requirements generally do well. So for me, honesty and integrity is the bedrock of selling. What makes selling so challenging? Compared to a desk job or an office job, salespeople do tend to have more number of interactions than others. more challenging circumstances. Like salespeople, when you go, you have a receptionist, probably you don't have an appointment, or the customer who is meeting is not willing to meet you immediately. In pharma selling, we say if you're meeting 10 customers in a day, if 20% of your calls are good, that means move towards your next level. We say it's a successful day. So one thing, either you have it internally within you or selling will teach you, but this is a very important quality, tough-minded optimism. In fact, if you tough-minded optimism was a quote which was coined by John Gardner. I said Alan Kay said that the best way to predict future is to create it. And if you want to predict future is very uncertain. You need to be a tough-minded optimist. And coming to optimism, I don't know how many of you have read this book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. It's listed among the 100 books you mandatorily need to read before you die. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Vienna, and during this, he was a Jew. And during the Second World War, he was in Austria, so he was confident being a psychiatrist, being a doctor. It allowed him certain kind of privileges. So he thought that the German army would never come and then take him away. But one day they arrived, took him and his family away. And they were all herded into one small wagon. And he was at Auschwitz. And when he was entering the gas chamber, when he was entering the concentration camp, he didn't know that it was a concentration camp. He was carrying his books. Because he was a psychiatrist, he was wearing his white coat. And the guard there hit him with a bat and asked him to remove his clothes in front of his wife and children. It's a must-read book. And it's a very moving book. And one of the things, Viktor Frankl, he survived Auschwitz. And he teaches us that it's not being very optimistic, it's not being pessimistic, but being realistic, having a dream allows him to come out of those very challenging circumstances. You can see on the right-hand side or left-hand view of the slide, when people were, how they were living on one loaf of bread and some soup. And one of the things he learned was, in these very challenging circumstances, he would visualize that one day he would be free and he would be lecturing his students about the experience he had. So tough-minded optimism should not be confused with being optimistic. Rather, tough-minded optimism is about understanding the reality. It's a very critical component about creating the future. And tough-minded optimism is about faith. It's about flexibility. It's about resilience. Now, it's good to have, say, tough-minded optimism. How do I develop tough-minded optimism? That's a question. So following the techniques, I found them very useful. One could be visualization. You know, Olympic athletes are told, are trained, in fact, to visualize themselves achieving their goals very clearly. Or chant, whether you heard the story of Saint Valmiki or Ratnakara, an uneducated bandit, murderer, he transformed himself by chanting the Lord's name. You can't do either of it, simply act. If you act, either action will lead to feelings or feelings will lead to action. So tough-minded optimism, these are the ways you go about developing tough-minded optimism. The more failures, in sales, you will meet failures. You will find most salespeople are optimistic, but I cannot say whether they are born optimistic or they develop optimism. I believe that people develop optimism to be good salespeople. When we speak about success, people immediately imagine about quantum leaps. More so, if you look at some of the very successful billionaires now, or companies, Google or even Facebook, where people have just risen up, riches came out of nowhere. But if you generally look at success, is all about not about even to achieve quantum leaps, it is about mediocrity. The first time I've heard about it, that was long ago. I read this article, Hero of Nazafgarh. We know who he is, Olympic medalist. I was reading about his life in a newspaper article after he won the medal at Olympics. Every morning he would get up at 3 o'clock, help his father clean the cow shed, milk the cows. 4:30, take a bus from there. 4 o'clock or 4:30, arrive at Delhi. 8 hours he would do this wrestling regimen. Around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, he would take the bus back, go to Nazafgarh, and he would sleep on the way. And day in and day out, he would do this for a number of years to reach the pedestal where he has reached. So I believe there are no shortcuts in selling or in life. Of late, you would see more. There are no shortcuts. It's a grind day in and day out. This is my favorite quote. Real heroes, opportunities are not usually deep virgin pools that require courage and boldness to dive into, but instead are obscure, dusted, and blocked by various forms of resistance. What is really called in these circumstances is clarity, deliberateness, and methodological determination. That means not allowing our emotions to take over on a challenging day, on a difficult day. Remembering success is about a grind day in and day out. Once you select those tasks, meeting more number of customers if need be. And the scientific basis for this is nothing but grit. Of course, there are various viewpoints to this. More and more subjects are evolving, whether it is grit or mindset. It's the discipline that small things lead to big changes. The most famous marshmallow test. Some of you must be knowing about the marshmallow test. 1970 in New York, some children were subjected to this test and they were filmed. And they were given this marshmallow. The teacher told them if the child wouldn't eat marshmallow, she will come back and give a marshmallow, and they would see how long was the child able to hold his impulse or ability to delay gratification. And later they saw that children who were able to delay their gratification, they did well in life. Although later studies have shown that it has got nothing for the child's ability to delay gratification, but the kind of upbringing they come from. But there are some studies which show that grit is really very important in terms, and in selling, it's extremely important. The other thing that is often talked about in selling is empathy, or whether it is empathy or perspective. In pharma as well, we are told to be very empathetic because it is patience. But my experience has been empathy is often confused, listening only to the customer's perspective. Perspective is often missed out. Of course, we have put ourselves in the customer's perspective. We are not sure whether it is the gut, which is empathy, or the head, which is the perspective. I would say to practice tough empathy. Tough empathy is giving people what they need necessarily. It is not necessarily what they want. Because most often customers do not know really what they want. For example, Henry Ford, I think, very famously said, if I would have asked a customer, probably he would say that I would prefer a transportation with 100 fast horses. So we need to practice tough empathy, be it customers or be it our colleagues. This is what I've seen. So whether it is gut or head depends on the circumstances. Practicing tough empathy helps in selling. So the question is, how do you raise, how can you be empathetic or perspective? So once again, see, the basic element, I think, for success in selling is to have curiosity. If you're curious, you want to know more about your customer. We want to know the context of his problems. We want to be there to help him rather than sell our products. Empathy also would mean listening. Empathy also means observation. You know, the most neglected, I think, in management and in selling is the art and the ability to observe things. It's a very unique skill. And you can develop this art of observation first by being curious about things around you, by being internal, not always external, and asking. Never be afraid to ask. But that reminds me of a very famous movie of Shirdi Sai Baba. In one of the scenes, one of his disciples, he was supposed to be a very learned man. He asks Baba a question, and then Baba asks him. Baba tells him, rather, he says, you know, when you ask a question, you should do that more to know the answer rather than challenge the authority or challenge the authority. So curiosity leads to listening, observing, asking will help us to reach there. I found this very interesting. Wish I had known this. This was a very interesting survey that was done. It was rather a research that was done in 1990. One of the professors who was working on listening has developed 36 questions, and he found that participants who participated to this survey questionnaire, out of some of the people fell in love. Later, he went back and investigated. You can get this online. Went back and investigated what was the reason why it happened. He realized that these questions triggered the listening mode in the other person. Wish I had known this before, but some of you, you can still try it. The 36 questions that lead to love. That speaks about the importance of listening, because selling is often thought about speaking and monologue, but it's rather a lot of listening, curiosity, observation, the pause between two sentences. So you can check this online later. I come from the school of hard knocks, as I said. I was not fortunate enough to complete my education. I did that later in an executive mode. But one thing that really helped me improve my knowledge was learning. I was trying to grab everything that was possible. And this is a very famous quote from Swami Vivekananda, who says, flexibility is life and rigidity is death. To give an example, see newborn babies. They're very flexible. And when we die, our body becomes very rigid. So learning is flexibility. When we say, I know everything, whatever our level of education may be, today you may be a PhD, if you stop reading, then we are done. I have very doctor colleagues who come back, and very famous doctors. I have seen one of their qualities is they're constantly learning. They update themselves continuously with journals like NEJM. So for me, learning is the key. If you don't read books, do videos, or attend one of the seminars like this, or interact with satsang, interact with knowledgeable people. So in selling, this is the key. What does this lead to? When we are learning, when we're trying to understand ourselves, it takes us internally, like curiosity. Who am I? Ramana Maharshi said that, who am I? Whatever you call it, we call it self-awareness, you can call it mindfulness, you can call it being there now. or you can say what psychologists say an inner dialogue. What happens if you're aware at this moment? You move from a problem solving mode to a problem identifying mode, and that's a big step. Whereas solution oriented selling is a problem solving selling, problem identifier mode is a consultative kind of approach, depends upon who your customer is. But awareness, mindfulness, being there now, all these helps to move to the next level. And how do we develop awareness? Very simple, be aware about your breath, that's all, to begin with. Then you have masters who help you develop this quality. But being in selling, I've come across something very interesting. I thought I'll share this with you. A disciple asked his Zen master, where shall I look for enlightenment? The master says here, when will it happen? It is happening right now. Then why don't I experience it? Because you do not look. What should I look for? Nothing, just look. At what? Anything your eyes alight upon. Must I look in a special kind of way? No, the ordinary way will do. But I always look the ordinary way. Why ever not? Because to look, you must be here and you are mostly somewhere else. When we are mostly somewhere else, we are in problem solving mode, then we miss out problem identification opportunities. So awareness is extremely important. This must be known to you. As a young rep, I was taught 20% of your customers give 80% of sales. But the other thing what I've learned is with experience that 80% of the time where you spend with other prospects is equally important because you're prospecting. And also this innovation learning comes from this 80% of the time as well. So while 20% of your customers may give 80% of results, don't just concentrate there. I have a spin to the popular saying, you need to spend equal time between what is important and what is unimportant, because what is unimportant today may become important. One golden rule of selling along with context, it's like swimming. You know, when I wanted to learn swimming around 3 years ago, I saw some videos, I tried to read a book, and when I entered the swimming pool, nothing of it was really very useful. To sell, to learn to sell, you should go out and sell. During the Iraq war, during the war, Operation Desert Storm, before that, during the Iraqi war, Saddam Hussein had to be caught. One of the national security advisors, I do not recall whom, has differentiated very well. There's a very nice article between mystery and data, mystery and puzzle. Puzzles need data to be solved. So the big data, whatever you look at, but mysteries can be only framed. You don't need data. You need insights to frame mysteries. And selling for me, just like our Zen monk tries to find God, our sages are very intelligent. They have realized that to find out God, the only thing you need is, apart from knowledge, is an insight or an experiential approach. So selling is all about action. One step you take, that's more than enough. Action is the key to gain insights, experiences. Action is the antidote for fear and rejection. And my ex-boss told me this golden principle. No matter what happens, Raj, you just show up. In selling, we know that certain days are not really good for you. But whatever may happen, just be there. Get ready, go for work, be there. So one key in selling, apart from context, is action. Few of the other tricks in psychology which I've shown, I don't have much time for this. You should read the book of Influence by Cialdini, whether it is reciprocity, authority, scarcity, liking, consistency, and social proof. These are probably for a different day. When it comes to handling objections, some of the frames I use, like a contrast principle, for example, to give very rapid examples. If you see a hero, there was a time back where there was a hero shooting and you have all these extras behind. The extras are never good. That's the contrast principle. If you want to make something look good, then something should be dull. Anchoring is a technique which is commonly used in pricing. If you have two products, you price one product very high, so the anchoring takes place at that. So the selection happens to the other product. Anchoring can be done in many ways. Experiential approach is something what we do day in and day out. Salesmen, pharma salesmen, we give out samples so that people experience the product. Blemish principle is another favorite of mine. When children are born, we in India put the kala tikka. Just to say that your product is not 100% good always, there is some amount of limitation from your product that would actually help the customer to understand. These are not to manipulate the customers, but an understanding of these principles will help you to help the customers in the right way. So as I said, the last 5 minutes, I will close with my storytelling technique. What we use in survey, this is called a situation, objective, logic, advantage, and engagement. This is developed by our Director of Global Excellence, Mr. Philip Mia. So in any selling call can be broken down into these 5 steps. Situation is when you try to understand the customer's needs, and this is where all the questioning takes place. This is where either even before you enter the call, you try and understand your customer's needs. And once you do that, you set an objective for the call. The objective for the call could be to show your customer something. It need not be sales always, moving one step ahead. Logic is where you give all the rational arguments out. There is nothing emotional here in this portion. Advantage is when you show not more than 3 rational arguments. Advantage is when you show for each rational argument what you have shown an emotional benefit, and engagement is the closing. Situation is the most important time. This is where we develop our sales call, and once after this mode, there is no more question. The rest is straightforward. And this is unidirectional in nature. That means if you don't do your situation properly, you don't understand your customer's needs, then the sales is not going to, you will not reach your objective. So if I have to summarize my presentation, there are 2 things which stand out for me. One, of all the rules, whether it is value-based selling, whether it is solution-oriented selling, consultative selling, purpose-driven selling, whatever is the selling methodology you're using, context is always the key. And these 7 parameters, honesty and integrity, tough-minded optimism, successful mediocrity, empathy or perspective, learning, some customers being more important than others, and action are the few things I've learned in pharma selling. And this is universally applied, whether it is pharma selling or IT selling, like the B2B selling, like the hospital scenarios, what we have experienced. So whatever I have put in, I have not been specially prepared for NASSCOM. These are my thoughts. I put them out on LinkedIn. You can visit them, some of them. Like the Zen approach has been boiling in my mind for quite some time. I posted about it around a year ago. So these were some of the thoughts which I want to share with you. Ankita, if there are any questions, we can take them.
Thanks, Mr. Reddy. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. So let's just begin our Q&A rounds. For the first question is by Rajesh. He's asking, how does this approach differ from MNCs with originator products versus Indian pharmacos with branded generics?
Whether it is the MNCs, whether you're selling cars, whether you're selling aeroplanes, whether it is consultative selling, Solve remains the same. Solve is not for pharma selling. Solve is a technique of storytelling. It's about, so there are 7 steps to storytelling, but this is a more refined way which works well. So it would work for any kind of selling, understanding the customer's needs or identifying the needs well in advance. After that, it's objective, logic, advantage, and closing. So it works well for any kind of selling.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Reddy. The next question is by Apekshit. He's saying, Could you please share some specific examples in your career about good observations you made and the impact it had on the doctor interaction during the routine call?
So some of them may appear not very relevant. For example, when we say you tend to, so there was this very tough and difficult doctor whom I was meeting. He was a very senior doctor, and he would never given any time for medical reps to speak. So it so happened one day I went to make his call and I told him, sir, nice shoe. He said, what? I said, nice shoe. He said, you knew that, you know what kind of shoes I wear? I said, yes, because I used to observe his feet used to stick out of his consulting table. Then he said, okay, then after that, he was more aware of what I was speaking. For some of you, it may look very irrational, but let me also share a similar example. When Bharti Airtel has taken over one of the companies, in the interviews in Business World, Mr. Mittal was speaking about how he was wearing the same shoe like the Sheikh was wearing. And when they observed each other, he pointed it out. And it gelled very well with the Sheikh, and that broke some ice. And that led to the sale for Bharti to take over that, Bharti Airtel. So that was an anecdote. So when you like your customers, you're curious about your customers, you naturally tend to develop, you like to observe them. There are many other examples, but this is the one which immediately comes to my mind. There was also an example where in one of the chambers where I was waiting, I found that there were a lot of NEJM subscriptions which were there on the doctor's table. I realized that the doctor likes NEJM, and showing something which I had about my product for NEJM helped.
All right. Thanks for the answer, Mr. Reddy. The next question is, do you believe self-talk is essential for a successful salesperson? How could one use self-talk as a technique in effective sales pitch?
So over a period of years, selling, as I said, is one which is prone to day in and day out, you experience very challenging situations. For example, you go and try to meet your customer, you realize that the receptionist is the key, she's not allowing you in, or something has changed dramatically. So there is because there is a lot of uncertainty, we tend to experience a lot of failures. Over a period of time, I have realized that maintaining optimism is possible when you do that inner dialogue, chanting something which could be as simple as I like myself, or any specific kind of chant. As I have given an example of sage Maharishi Valmiki, he was given to chant Mara, and then he transformed himself into a saint. Whether it's a Buddhist story you believe in, Ratnakara, which is the same. And I do talk to myself, whatever may be the situation. And I see it really helps. Whether it is visualization, whether it is chanting, self-talk, inner dialogue, I've not shared anything in my slides which I didn't do in last 25 years. However silly it may sound, it helped me, and I think it really helps.
Thanks, Mr. Reddy. The next question is, what steps are important to rebuild the lost trust?
So you have to go back. Imagine that there is an incident which would have happened, that led to the loss, losing the trust. You have to go to the person or the situation, tell them transparently what would have happened. Don't expect miracles. Then it's a grind day in and day out. Wait for the opportunity to allow you to gain the trust back again. But know in heart you've done a mistake which had resulted in that. Either it could be a misunderstanding. Sometimes time helps. That's why it's grit, and it's going, not letting it go. That's the one thing which comes to my mind immediately. There's no other solution. But being very transparent with the other person helps.
All right. The next question is by Anupam. He's asking, you have mentioned integrity and honesty, whereas frameworks related to contrast principle or anchoring seem contrary to honesty. Am I missing something here?
So any kind of, there are various principles, Anupam. First, knowing about the principles is very important. See, a lot of times anchoring need not be used only in a dishonest way. If you understand it will help your customer, you can use some of the principles in a good way. Just like how a knife is used either for surgery or to kill someone. So the context matters probably. So I do understand that sometimes behavioral psychology is perceived something as a trick to manipulate, but sometimes, as Richard Thaler has very nicely written in Nudge, it can be used to bring about behavioral changes. So the context matters, and for you, it is important to know what they are. So not to use them in a negative way is all the more important.
Thanks. The next question is by Ajay. He's saying, any techniques or preparations that have helped to time a sale?
So as I said, if you understand your customer well, and probably this is one of the reasons, if you think that is going to benefit from closing the sale early, is where all the techniques, all the behavioral techniques I've mentioned, the techniques of influence. In fact, pharma selling shows one of the best principles in pharma selling. We have realized, even if you have 1,000 customers, it's 10 or 20 people who can influence everyone else. Peer influence is very, very strong in pharma. Some doctor key opinion leaders can decide whether which drug would be used more. So it depends really. So if you think that, so using certain levers like this will definitely help you to time your sale. So that is the reason why I didn't have time to explain the levers which are there, the influences. You should be able to use them, the principles, the 6 principles of influence to time the sale.
Very well answered, Mr. Reddy. The next question is by Mohan. He's asking, any suggestion how to approach clients in the current pandemic situation?
So if it's someone who's not known to you, then it's going to be very challenging, and probably an email. So one of the things what I've learned, although behaviors are changing, but I don't know how long they last, a purpose-driven email, SMS would help. Be upfront, be transparent, and say, this is the reason why I want to reach you. Is there a possibility? What time should I call you? So very simple, transparent, with a clear purpose in mind. If you explain, and that is where probably reputation helps. If you have been in the industry for some time, if people know we can be trusted, they will give us time. But if you are someone who's new, then being transparent, being purpose-driven, a short email, WhatsApp rather than calling people may help to schedule your calls. And this has helped for me.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Reddy. Just my own question in addition to Mohan's, I just want to ask that how to convert the prospective customers, prospective clients into customers during this time, COVID-19.
So
I'm sure my competitors all must be buzzing around. So how to focus?
So competitors don't matter. You know, I was reading something. Competitors don't matter. People buy because they like other people, not brands. Okay, in general. So if people know you, that's why salespeople are there. If they like us, they will buy our product. So it's all about how you can make people trust you, how you can help them, how you can identify their problem. So one of the techniques, whether it is value, solution oriented, jobs to be done, consultative, or purpose driven, you need to choose one of them. Now, which one would work would depend on the context. If you have been in the industry for some time, your reputation helps. But if you are new, then it's all about how you can make people trust you.
Sure. Thanks for the great answer, Mr. Reddy. The next question is James has a question for you. He's saying, why do people fear difficult customers? Aren't they our key learning agents?
So I have read something somewhere between a danger and a discomfort. People often take the quickest route, which is danger, surprisingly. So human beings we tend to avoid discomfort. It's like we don't want to delay our gratification. So we know when the customer is going to be difficult, although he's going to be beneficial in the long run. So we don't want to delay our gratification. That's why successful sales people are the ones who are able to delay the gratification. They will choose discomfort over comfort in the short term. So when you choose discomfort, that's Zen of selling. When you choose discomfort now, you'll end up with comfort later. If you choose comfort now, you'll end up with discomfort later. So the reason is because we want to, as human beings, we are wired to avoid discomfort. We foolishly choose danger than discomfort. That's why.
Very well answered. Sarvanan has a question for you. Which of the two is a key asset to a salesperson, listening or speaking?
It is not in isolation. See, the enlightened one, the most compassionate one, Buddha said, if you pick up one end, you automatically pick up the other end. What I mean, you cannot say night. What is night? Night is when there is no sunlight. And what is light? When it is not dark. So it cannot be listening or speaking. Although people would say that listening is more important. But it's both. So that's why I said the context becomes very important. But if you have to choose one, probably listening is more important. But I don't think we can make that choice. That's why it's Zen. It's the middle path is always better.
Rightly said, Mr. Reddy. Another question is by Anbarasan. We are doing offshore sales without direct meeting customers. Can you share some tips to find the customer pulse in call to close the deal positively?
Well, it's a very challenging thing. So one, probably the reputation of your company, your experience, what you have done before, for example, sharing some more client experiences, finding more about the client. So sharing your client experiences, previous client experiences, if it matches with the present client, is a very good way of closing sales. Proactively show what your previous customers think about it. May not be just videos. I have had this recently, as I said, we had 3 selling experiences. So somebody had to sell this social media, this one. The interesting thing, what they have done is they have organized a call with another company which has done such similar project. So the salesman didn't have to do anything. So if you are able to organize something like that, they work extremely well. Rather than we speaking about us, if our customers can speak about us, that's the best selling. So maybe we can do that. Trying to find out more about the customer needs from industry bodies will really help in closing the deal. But that becomes very important. If somebody else can speak for you, an expert, a previous customer, then that would really help you to close deals quickly.
All right. Lavkush has a question for you. Any use of data to do informal conversations rather than formal, and how it could be better in challenging situations?
So when we speak about data, the most important thing is how you're going to present the data. Informal also it would help. First, see, when we speak about data, provided that it's true, verifiable, evidence-based, then customer will start respecting your knowledge. Once he respects your knowledge, he knows that you know which subject area you're speaking about. Whether it is a formal conversation or informal, doesn't matter. But it shouldn't appear as if we are trying to show off. It's just to show you understand the problem or you're observing a particular thing. So if you share evidence-based data, whether formal or informal, it would always help. But rational, it helps the rational part, but you need to solidify that with the emotional part as well in terms of real advantages. So data always helps. Without data, it could be challenging.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Reddy. So I was just looking at my clock and I've just hit 5:15. So we have to now close this session, and I am assuming Love Wishes 1 was the last question of this session. And thank you so much, Mr. Reddy, for your time and efforts and for this great and amazing presentation with so much of experience you have shared. So thank you so much. And to all the audience, I just want to share that tomorrow again I will meet all of you from at 2:30 p.m. With a great session from the product management series. The topic will be building and scaling tech products when all hell breaks loose by Costa Patekar, founder, Nitrous Oxide Consulting. To see you all of you tomorrow at 2:30. And thank you so much, Mr. Reddy, for your time and this great presentation.
Ankita, I would like to thank Professor Sridhar, Amit, thank you and all the participants, and thanks to the NASSCOM team for allowing me to share my views. So it was a great experience. Thank you very much once again. Have a very nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay indoors. Thank you. See you tomorrow.